Hi guys, welcome back to Alternate. It's Adrian. Thanks for joining me again on Podcast Day. And you know, Podcast Day is quickly becoming my favorite part of the Alternate upload schedule, mainly because it's a little bit more relaxed. It's a little bit like I'm sitting here having a conversation with you guys, having a cuppa. I'm kidding, it's Coke. But how cool is this mug? I don't know where the best, maybe like right near my face. Can you see that? It's like a cable pattern. My sister got me this for Christmas from Marks and Spencer, and I drink every hot drink out of it, and today cold drink, because as you can see by the bright sun behind me, we have this random week of summer in the middle of winter. I hope it goes away quickly because despite the beanie, it's pretty hot in here. All right, so today, it's really hot. Yeah, I'm sweating. Oh, I've got the air conditioner on. I hope you really can't hear that. I'm sorry, I'm not turning it off today. Okay, so Ravelry. That's what we're talking about today. And if you're new to crafting, or if you are an experienced crafter and you've been crafting from underneath a rock and you've never heard of Ravelry before, I'm just gonna show you a little bit about what's on my Ravelry. It's not like a tutorial on how to use Ravelry or anything like that, but it is, you know, don't let the fluffy pink, the cute cartooniness of it fool you. This is actually a pretty powerful tool, an online community for knitters, spinners, weavers, everyone who's involved in fibercraft. So let's go ahead and log in. I'm gonna I can't figure out how to do a screen capture on my iPad that isn't like illegal. There's nothing through the App Store that I know of anyway. So what I'm going to do is just talk through it here and use it as a point of reference for myself. But I'm going to film me sort of navigating through on my computer later. Hopefully it all matches up. Probably don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. Before we get into it, actually, I do want to mention that I am not going to be uploading a video next week as per the typical alternate schedule, because this time next week, I will be in literally the biggest exams of my entire life. I'm feeling stressed thinking about it. I'm going to upload something that's not knitting related. I'm going to film it today and it will be uploaded on Saturday. So you guys are still going to get a new video, but it's going to be something a little bit more fun and, quite frankly, something that I have wanted to do since before I even had my own YouTube channel. All right, so the first thing I'm going to look at is my projects page. So this is basically all of the things that I've uploaded for anyone to see. And you'll probably notice, I'm going to do an overlay, but I'll show the camera anyway. You'll notice that I've got like 10 things. Now I have knit more than this, but I'm the kind of person who really just wants to edit the yucky things out. And so these are the only things that I'm kind of like happy to say that I've done. I don't know how you feel about that. I know there are a lot of people who think they're just going to put everything up there. It's more authentic that way. Start from the crappy beginnings and go through to what they're currently doing now. I agree. I'm into that too, but some of the stuff was really crappy, and I just had to get rid of it because it made me feel unwell having it there. So the first thing we're going to look at is the slouch beanie for Mary, and that's my mum. And this was the first beanie that I ever made. I lie, actually no, I did make one before, but it came out looking like an enormous grey Santa hat, so I really don't count it. So this is the first one that's actually usable as a garment of clothing or as an accessory. It was knit on US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needles from Cleckheaton, so it's that ubiquitous Australian wool. It's in a colorway that I think was called petrol green or bottle green. Why would I say petrol green? That's not a nice name for a yarn. Bottle green, but really it looked a little bit more like a chartreuse, which was on trend at the time. My mum loves the color. She's really into bright colors. And I thought this would be a really fun one to do as well, because I had to that point just been knitting with neutral colors. It is 100% wool. Now, this was shortly after I received my Addi clicks in the mail, and I really wanted to cast on and use them, and I thought, great, beanies. But the pattern that I used, knit the beanie flat and then seamed it up with a mattress stitch at the end. So this was actually a knit flat beanie that was seamed up. And I don't know about you, but I find that the less seams, the easier it is. So for beginner patterns to knit the garment flat and then have to seam it up, yes, it does teach skills quickly, but I do find that it's a bit simpler. Maybe that's just me, to knit in the round. But anyway, this was knit flat, and You know, you probably can't see it very well in the top picture of it, sort of like slouched over. No, not really. Well, maybe a little bit. Actually, you can see it better in the second picture. What I was talking about last week, if you watched my tutorial on ribbing, there can sometimes be some tension issues with the second knit stitch, and it can look larger and looser, and that's definitely going on here. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll be able to see that the ribbing is pretty loose with this the left column of knit stitches for every part of the ribbing, and that's something that now I've been able to correct with a couple of techniques, but it was pretty evident back there. I do think that the body, the stockinette stitch, was fairly neat for, I was kind of beginning then. This is the first thing I'd ever done that had decreases or any kind of shaping, and my mum really liked it, and she still does use it, which is the real test. This was done, I don't even know where this pattern came from, honestly. And look at me, I've put status finish, but I did not put a start or completion date. That was me being naughty. So we move on to the next project. It's the Hudson's Bay inspired crib blanket, and you've seen this because this was the first review that I did. It was a pattern review, but this is actually my project page. So these are photos of the blanket that I took myself. You can see the yarn that I used here, Panda Carnival, Panda Magnum. So these are sort of on the lower end of the acrylics. I really didn't feel like spending so much money the very first time I was doing a blanket, because I was a little afraid that I would lose interest part of the way through and ditch the project, and I'd end up having all of this expensive yarn. It wasn't that it was super cheap, it just wasn't as expensive as, say, the $350 that the original pattern called for. It is a gorgeous looking yarn, so I'm sure it's worth absolutely every penny. I just didn't have all of those pennies at the time, and I didn't have the willingness to spend them either. You can see here that I didn't put a start date, but I did put a completion date of November 15, 2014. And this was for my cousin's baby boy, and it was a Hudson's Bay inspired crib blanket by Pearl Soho. It is a great pattern. I gave it, I didn't rate the yarn very highly. So what is my update? 21st November 2014. So this was after I had finished it. I finally finished this a few days ago. What a relief. I love this blanket's simplicity, but that's what makes it a little laborious, and it really is. I would actually love to make this in Ultra Pima cotton, knowing that it will be 1,000 times heavier than this airy acrylic. How do I feel about that now? Would I still make it in cotton? Potentially, but I feel like obviously wool would be a lot softer and cozier. However, where I live in the world, it doesn't get very cold for very long. So maybe cotton wouldn't be a bad idea. I've got plenty of time to think about it. So let's move to the next project on the list. I hope you're finding this interesting. I'm kind of finding it interesting going back in time. So the next thing is Redwood, and it's another beanie. As I said in a previous video, I'm kind of a beanie person. I love to knit beanies. I like to wear them, mainly because I'm losing my hair. And this one is the Redwood, and Redwood is the name of the red colorway in this project. So that was really inventive of me. And look at me, very good. It's Positively Red Hook Hat by Lion Brand Yarn, or Lion Brand Company. It's the original pattern. I'm not keen on the color combinations, but I thought this was just a really simple knit in the round beanie that I could customize endlessly, and it's kind of proven to be that kind of pattern, which is great. And I believe this is a free pattern too, so check that out on Ravelry if you just want a basic stock standard hat beanie toque pattern. I did say that I started this on June 26, 2015 and finished it the following day, so it was a really quick project. I must have been knitting quite a bit for that to get done in a day. I'm not the quickest knitter in the world, and I really don't get much time to knit. Often, especially during the week, it's just in the evenings, and if I'm working on something really simple, sure, I'll pick it up and I'll knit. But if it's something that requires a bit of thinking, I'm probably not going to knit it until either at the end of the week or on the weekends. This was pretty well made to pattern with a 20 stitch increase to accommodate bigger heads and the different yarn type, obviously. I don't think I was gauge swatching then. I love the Redwood color and think it works well with the neutral Mount Rainier cozy and comfy. This can be worn as a slouch beanie or folded up and worn closer to the scalp. Okay, I just got up to check the camera to make sure it hadn't stopped recording, and it had, and I wasn't recording sound with the camera, so I'm not quite sure if anything got missed. I apologize if it did, but let's move on anyway. And now we're looking at the Norwegian pattern Toque. So this was pretty much the first color work project that I ever did, and it knit up super quickly. I started it on November 28th and finished it on the 30th, and it is a drops pattern, which is of course free, and you can find it on their website or link it in Ravelry. And I made this for Reese out of Cascade Ultra Pima cotton. Back then I really didn't know the difference between sort of like a wool or a cotton, or why I would use one or the other, and it was a little bit tighter and it didn't really fit him, which was kind of a shame. So now my mum has it, but I can't honestly say that I've ever seen her wearing it. It knit up super quick, and it was really fun to knit the colorwork. It kept my brain really engaged, and it made use of the continental and English knitting styles that I had just learned the difference between when I did this project. And I really like it. I think you can see in the top picture here that there's some of the like light fawn colored stitches did sink in a little bit, and I think this is a tension issue, but it was a great way for me to practice sort of stranded knitting. And I really like it. I think it's cute. The cabled scarf. So this is the next pattern, and this one is a Cleckheaton pattern, and I knit it for Reese, and he did complete it. It took me absolute months and months. You can see here, it started it in February and finished it in November. So that was a really long time, but I actually stopped knitting it for months and months, mainly because it was such a fine yarn, and it was the first, this actually I did before I did the beanies, so it was the first cable thing I really did. But I love it. I love how it turned out. I just wasn't really pleased with the yarn, which I guess now I can tell you is the Cascade Superwash, the Cascade Superwash Sport 220, whatever it's called. It really just didn't hold up. However, I'm glad I still have some, because I'll be using it to seam up a pattern that I'm knitting at the moment with Brooklyn Tweed Loft, which you can't really use to make seams with just because it's so fragile. But anyway, back to this pattern. I put like a couple of updates here, and it says this is my first attempt at anything cabled, and I think it's a good place to start because the actual cabling is pretty straightforward, and a lot of the texture is added using TW, which was a twisted stitch, and there are 6 of them per cable row. Fun knit keeps my little brain going. It does indeed. I did really enjoy knitting this, and I think I will make more of them, just in different yarn. And now we're coming to the final 3 projects that I've got on there, and actually it makes me realize that I haven't put the current project that I'm working on now, which is bad. I should actually start this project page and keep updating it. But this is Wool Leaves, and this is this was where I really started to become passionately in love with knitting, mainly because the marriage between the Nicer Knit yarn, which I absolutely love, and the Brooklyn Tweed patterns, which again I love. I think it's a perfect marriage between the two. So this knit up super quickly, even though it was my first lace pattern, and yes, I did practice. I did do a swatch with a couple of the wool leaf motifs, and you can actually see on my Instagram the failed attempt at understanding the pattern, and then it kind of clicked for me, and I got it, and it was actually really simple. But this took only just about a week to do, February 15 this year to February 21, and this was for my cousin's baby boy Marcus. And it's really nice receiving photos from the parents with the kid wrapped in the blanket, just to know that work that you put a lot of love and care into has actually gone and into someone who appreciates it. That's really nice. What did I write here? Working with yarn held double. Have practiced this pattern prior to using the Nicer Knit, working quickly just past the first leaf motif. And then at the end, this knit up very quickly and is actually not difficult at all. And I know some people will look at that and just sort of like roll their eyes, but it looks a lot more difficult than it is. And it is a really fun pattern to keep the brain moving. Being lace, blocking is all important, and it really is, because this will end up looking kind of like the inside of an egg carton if you don't block it, basically just because of how the stitches are tensioned. I don't think you really need expensive blocking materials. I got those foam jigsaw playmat things from Kmart that kids can play on, and I just have like a box of white pins. So they're just standard short metal pins from a dressmaking shop that probably cost me $2 for several thousand of them. And I use those to block, and that's how I blocked this. And it came out looking pretty good, if I do say so myself. Now, you might notice the third picture here. This was me washing the yarn, and I was washing it in a hair conditioner that had kukui nut oil in it, which I read was great for hair fibers, and I thought wool fibers, hair fibers, why not use the same thing? Mainly because the only wool wash I can find around here is just some sort of not very nice eucalyptus sort of thing. But anyway, this was the picture that eventually became the Alter-Knit logo. So that's kind of interesting, I think. The next project that I'm going to show you is Facet's hat, and this one is by Rosebeck, and I did see it on Jacqueline Salem's podcast Brooklyn Knit Folk. I'll put a link to her channel in the description box below. She has a great podcast where she shows you a bit of New York, and I really love to see that. I think I've mentioned this before. Anyway, she had knit this project and was wearing it, or she was showing it on screen, and Reese saw this on her podcast and said, look, I love that, can you make that for me? And so I did. All right, moving on to the final project that I've got there, and I'll talk about then now what I'm knitting now, is the Shale Baby Blanket by Jared Flood. Again, this is a Brooklyn tweed / nice and knit combination, and I just thoroughly enjoyed knitting this blanket. And it shows because you can see here that it was started on March 20th and finished April 26th. Oh wait, yeah, no, right. Okay, that was a week and a month. So I must have been busy then, because it was knitting up really quickly. Oh, that's right. This was actually a bigger blanket than the Wool Leaves. And it did take a little bit more for my mind to focus on the lace pattern here. So the notes here I've got, I'm following Betsy Jo's lead on this one, and I'm knitting in single stranded with Nice and Knit in DK. This is probably the loosest project I've ever knit, and was a little afraid the beautiful textures in this project weren't going to come through, but after a few repeats, I'm a little more confident. You know, I think the pictures speak for themselves. You can really see that lace motif pop, and it looks great, if I do say so myself, and I do. The colorway was bisque, and it was beautiful. It's a pink. I mean, you can say it's like an heirloom pink or a dusty pink, but when you look at the yarn itself, there are parts that are a little warmer and are a little cooler depending. So it's a very clever dye. Yes. And so that's basically everything for my finished objects that I want to show people on Ravelry. I am knitting this pattern here in... Actually, you know what? We'll go to my favorites first, and we'll just have a really quick look at that. So if we're scrolling right down to the bottom here, you can see the very first thing that I ever favorited was Wool Leaves. I don't know if it tells you when you favorited these things, but it was pretty much like the day that I joined up to Ravelry. I just loved it from the very beginning and thought one day I will knit that, and I have, which is great. Same with the next one, which is the Hudson's Bay inspired crib blanket. I did come across that really early in the piece, looking through Pearl Soho's website, and I was completely struck by the design of it. I loved that natural wool color and then those vibrant, rich stripes of color. It reminded me of an Australian clothing brand, Sports Girl, in the 90s at some point. I think they used to have this kind of color pattern, striped motif on their bags, and it was kind of iconic to me. And then to learn that it was actually an iconic design in Canada, and there was a bit of history behind it, that, you know, I'm a bit of a sentimentalist, so that was really great for me. I loved that. So I've knit that as well. Socks. I do have a couple of sock patterns there that I'm probably never going to do. I love the look of these camp and trail socks. They're obviously not practical. They obviously look really comfortable. They are a top-down Kitchener close at the toe for sock heads out there who want to know. I've got a couple of shirts here as well that I'd really love to knit for my mum or my sister. I think that they would love these simple designs. I'm not really into the hugely intricate... Actually, I lie because I love Fair Isle, but by and large, the kind of things that I love have a bit of simplicity to them. And you can probably see that here with the patterns that I've picked. Although, do you know what? It really doesn't look like it, does it? So what am I even talking about? I've got a couple of blankets there. I've got multigrain here. One of my friends on Ravelry, who I've never met, but we've, chatted back and forth before, he was knitting multigrain and basically indicated that it was like a life sentence. And when I looked at this, from what I can tell, it's basically seed stitch in fingering weight or lace weight yarn, so it must take ages to do, but the finished product looks amazing and his looked great as well. Redford, underneath that's what I'm working on at the moment. It's a Brooklyn Tweed pattern, and I'm not knitting it in red. I'm knitting it in the charcoal grey that you saw me do with the unboxing. Oh, right, an update on that. So Brooklyn Tweed were really great. They were so apologetic, and I was like, look, it's fine. I'm literally gonna take forever to get through the 6 skeins of yarn that I've already got. So just send the other 2 when you have time, and they did. They said, don't worry about the shipping, we'll take responsibility for that. And of course they did provide me with some more free patterns as well. So that was really, really sweet of them to do. And they even made sure that the new yarn was in the same color dye lot. So yeah, thanks to Brooklyn Tweed, that was really great. Okay. Every single time I check the camera, it stopped recording. It's frustrating. But look, that's everything for today, guys. I just really wanted to show you Ravelry because it's such a useful website. If you didn't know about it somehow, now you do. Get on there, friend me. I think I'm Adrian VC, so I can see what you guys are working on. Now, I won't see you for a couple of weeks because I've got my exams. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm in need of a bit of love, so please leave some in the comments below. And of course, if you haven't remembered to subscribe to my channel, please do so that you get a notification whenever I upload, which is once a week. All right, see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Bye.